Have you ever been afraid? Not of the dark or of a snake slithering across your path, but of being unseen, unwanted, alone? One of the most powerful truths woven through the Bible isn't just about miracles and mountains moved. It's about fear, real, raw fear, and how God enters into those moments, especially for women. Because while the world often looks at women's strength, Scripture looks deeper into the silent corners of their fears, not to shame them, but to heal them. And today we're going to walk through 5 of the most gripping fears women face and what God says in response. There's a silent war many women fight daily, one that rarely makes headlines, but is deeply rooted in hearts across the world. It's not a war waged with weapons, but with whispers of doubt, haunting memories, and societal pressures. The greatest fears that grip many women are not just emotional footnotes. They are defining forces that shape identity, decisions, and dreams. These fears are complex, often layered with personal, cultural, and relational experiences. Let's explore 5 of the most profound fears many women carry, often in silence, yet with deep emotional weight. Number 1. Fear of abandonment and rejection. This fear often begins in childhood and matures painfully through life's experiences. It's the lingering ache that says, I am not enough to be loved forever. For many women, abandonment, whether by a parent, partner, or even a close friend, leaves invisible scars that whisper threats of being discarded again. Rejection is not just the ending of a relationship. It's the feeling of being unseen, unchosen, unworthy. Women who have experienced betrayal, neglect, or emotional withdrawal often live with an internal warning system, expecting loss even in the midst of love. This fear can lead to hypervigilance in relationships, difficulty trusting others, and a tendency to overgive in hopes of being kept. The fear of being left alone can become so overwhelming that it influences how women love, how they communicate, and how they view themselves. From the very beginning, abandonment has echoed through the hearts of women. Think of Hagar in Genesis 16, a woman used, then cast out, rejected, pregnant, alone in the desert with no voice, no advocate, no way forward. Can you imagine her heartbeat racing as she wandered in the wilderness with nothing but rejection echoing in her ears? But God saw her. In a moment of profound tenderness, he revealed himself not with thunder or fire, but with a name, El Roi, the God who sees me. Hagar, an Egyptian servant, was the first person in Scripture to name God personally. That's how deeply he met her fear. And today, countless women still fear being left by a partner, a parent, a friend, or society. But the word is clear. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13 verse 5. You are not invisible to God. Number 2, fear of isolation and vulnerability. To be vulnerable is to be open. And for many women, that openness comes with the terrifying risk of being misunderstood, judged, or dismissed. Women are often raised to be the nurturers, the ones who hold others together. Yet in the process, they are rarely given the space to reveal their own weaknesses. The fear of isolation stems from a deeper fear that if their true self, flaws, needs, emotions were revealed, they would be left standing alone. This fear is amplified by societal pressures that often reward strength and independence, but punish emotional honesty. Women may fear expressing emotional needs, trauma, or mental health struggles, worrying they will be seen as too much or too fragile. This fear builds walls around the heart, keeping others out but also trapping pain within. This fear goes beyond being alone. It's about being exposed, unprotected, and powerless. We see this in the bleeding woman in Mark 5. For 12 years she bled, not just physically, but emotionally and socially. She was considered unclean, unable to touch or be touched. isolated, vulnerable, forgotten. Yet one desperate touch of Jesus' cloak changed everything. Not only was she healed, but Jesus stopped everything to see her, to speak to her, and to affirm her identity. Daughter, your faith has made you well. He restored her, not just physically, but relationally and spiritually. For the woman who fears being unguarded, God becomes her protector and shield. Psalm 91 verse 4. Vulnerability in God's presence is not weakness. It's a place of healing. Number 3. Fear of loss of love and being valued. Love, when healthy, brings security. But for many women, love feels like a condition, something that must be earned, kept, and guarded. The fear of losing love is not just about romantic relationships. It encompasses parental love, friendship, and the affirmation that comes from being needed and seen. At the core of this fear is the dread of no longer being valued, of being replaced, overlooked, or outgrown. In a world that often places worth on beauty, youth, and utility, many women wrestle with the anxiety of becoming invisible as they age or shift roles. Whether it's the loss of a partner's attention, a child growing up, or society deeming them less relevant, the emotional toll can be devastating. This fear can push women to suppress their own desires, overcompensate in relationships, or cling to people and roles that no longer serve them, simply to feel valued. Who hasn't feared being unloved or replaced? Leah did. She was given to Jacob through deceit, overshadowed by her sister Rachel, and left craving her husband's affection. In Genesis 29, you can hear the ache in her voice with every son she bears. Now my husband will love me, she says, but he never does. Yet the Bible quietly reveals a stunning truth. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb. Genesis 29, verse 31. God responded to her pain not by changing Jacob, but by affirming Leah's worth himself. She eventually bore Judah, the tribe from which Jesus Christ would come. The woman overlooked by man was honored by God. For every woman who fears that she doesn't matter, God whispers, "You are precious in my sight, and I love you." Isaiah 43, verse 4. Number 4. Fear of infertility or barrenness. For women who desire to become mothers, the fear of infertility cuts deep. It's not just a medical concern, it's an emotional and spiritual ache. In many cultures, womanhood has long been tied to the ability to bear children, and for some women, the thought of barrenness can feel like a personal failure, an identity crisis. Even before diagnosis, some women live in fear of, what if I can't? This fear brings grief, shame, and sometimes silent envy. It often comes with layers of guilt, especially in family or faith-based environments where motherhood is not just encouraged, but expected. The struggle to conceive, or the anticipation of that struggle, can affect marriages, self-esteem, and even a woman's relationship with God. It is a fear that reaches beyond the physical and touches the very core of purpose and legacy. Barrenness in biblical times wasn't just a medical condition, it was a social and spiritual sentence. It brought shame, ridicule, and despair. We see it in Hannah, Sarah, Rachel, Elizabeth, each one crying out with a deep longing for life within. Hannah's pain in 1 Samuel 1 is almost unbearable. Mocked by her husband's other wife, misunderstood by the priest, and crushed in spirit. But Hannah took her pain to the Lord, and Scripture says, He remembered her. Her son Samuel became a prophet and leader in Israel. God didn't just fill her womb, He filled her purpose. The fear of barrenness still lives today, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. But God still hears the silent cries. He still gives life. He settles the childless woman in her home as a happy mother of children. Psalm 113, verse 9. Number 5. Fear of a broken marriage or home. Marriage, for many women, represents security, companionship, and shared purpose. But the fear of watching it fall apart, of seeing love fade or trust shatter, can be paralyzing. The image of a broken home is not just about separation, it's about the shattering of dreams, the pain of disillusionment, and the fear of what it means for the children, the future, and self-worth. Divorce or separation is not always a chosen path, yet the fear of it looms, especially in a world where infidelity, emotional neglect, and communication breakdowns are all too common. Even in seemingly stable marriages, women may carry an undercurrent of fear, worrying about drifting apart, becoming emotionally neglected, or not being enough to hold the relationship together. This fear is often unspoken, but manifests in anxiety, overaccommodation, or silent suffering. This is perhaps the most deeply personal fear of all. What if my home breaks? What if the one I built my life with leaves, changes, or gives up? The Bible doesn't avoid this pain, it shines a light on it. In John chapter 4, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at a well. She's had 5 husbands. The man she's with now isn't even her husband. Imagine her history, the fear, the instability, the scars from broken promises. And yet Jesus doesn't shame her. He reveals himself to her more clearly than he had to anyone else at that point. I who speak to you am he, the Messiah. She becomes a bold witness, transforming her whole village. A broken home doesn't disqualify a woman from God's grace. It becomes the backdrop of his redemptive story. For every woman watching her home crack under pressure, God is still the rebuilder of broken walls. Isaiah 58 verse 12. In conclusion, these fears of abandonment, isolation, devaluation, infertility, and broken relationships are not signs of weakness. They are reflections of deep longing to belong, to be seen, to be loved, to create, and to preserve. When acknowledged and brought into the light, these fears don't have to define a woman's story. Instead, they can become sacred invitations to healing, to strength, and to the kind of courage that grows in the heart of every woman who dares to face them. If this message encouraged you, hit that like button, subscribe for more faith-based content, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.
Please like, subscribe and share.